Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. It's a beautiful day in Fort Worth and we're very pleased that you have decided to spend the next hour together with Rotary friends and colleagues. We'll begin our meeting with an invocation by Scott Ryder, CEO and founder of the Ryder Group, followed by the national anthem played by Harriet Harrell, principal of the Harrell Group. Scott?
Good afternoon. If y'all join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask for your blessings today. We ask that you pray for one person who needs Christ today. We gather today as Rotarians where service above self is our goal. Across our nation and across our world, the need is clear and the responsibility is ours. Scripture reminds us when God's people humble themselves and pray, he moves. This is our moment to respond, not with more noise, but with faithful, persistent prayer. Prayer at the heart is calling 1 million believers to pray for one person who needs Christ, to stand in the gap, to seek God for our families and for our communities around the world and here in our nation, to lift up one name, asking God to draw them all to himself. Not someone else, not someday, you. May our Rotary friends, our Rotary ways, serve us in all our days. Amen. Amen. By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, who brought stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare above bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Scott and Harriet. Please be seated. Here to welcome our guest is Don Marable, CFP General Partner, Edward Jones Investments. Don.
Thanks, Ann. Howdy. My pleasure to introduce today's guest and their host. If you would, if you're a guest, when we call your name, just stand up and let us have the opportunity to give you a little applause. That'd be great. First guest is Dean Cindy Weston, who is the guest of immediate past President Rebecca Montgomery. Next, we have John Reynolds, who is here with Karen Antman. Veronica Law, who is the guest of President-elect Tom Law. Jamie Williams, guest of Jan Titsworth. Doug Wilhelm, guest of Mitch Reitman. Kelly Mitchell, guest of Brandon Chikoski. Terry Frost, guest of Shadi Kalani. Next, we have Hayden Gothard, who is guest of Ben Robertson. Grace Lewis is also here with Ben Robertson. Alexa Garfias is a guest of Rosa Maria Verdeja, as well as Jessica Garfias. Jennifer Dewitt is here as a guest of Rebecca Montgomery. Jay Pritchard is here as a guest of Charlie Johnson. Rebecca's busy. She's got another guest. Her guest is Lee Payne. One other guest and one other member I want to recognize. My assistant Lauren is with me here today. She is my right-hand person. Lauren Lindsay is my guest. Y'all can come by and offer her condolences, but she has to put up with me every day. And then we have another very special visitor kinda here. Miss Kathy Sheffield is here. So please come by and say hey.
Thank you, Don. We're very happy to have all of you who are here today. It's a tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to say together Rotary's four-way test, a guide for what we think, say, and do. Please join me. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it be goodwill and better friendship? And number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. And now we set aside that four-way test for the next 3 minutes as we have our newscast. Today's newscaster is Tom Williams, partner Haynes & Boone. Tom.
Well, thank you, President Ann. You know, the Rotary newscast is somewhat controversial, but I don't know we've drawn protesters before, but I'm flattered. I would have said that I feel about as welcome as President Trump at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, but the president announced this week that he's actually going to attend the dinner. It will be an interesting evening. Among the many news organizations that are represented in the host organization are the New York Times, CBS, ABC, CNN, the Wall Street Journal, and the BBC, all of which have one thing in common: the president has sued them at some point in the last 2 years. The master of ceremonies for the event will be the mentalist, as he calls himself, Oz Perlman. He's the guy who reads people's minds for a living. Perlman said he was invited to be the MC at the event to be a unifier because he is someone that everyone can enjoy. But he did admit that reading Donald Trump's mind is the most impressive thing you can do. So we'll have the president, a room full of journalists, and a guy who reads minds for a living. What can possibly go wrong? There's a lot of speculation about what the president himself will say at the dinner. When presidents, this will be the president's first time to attend as president. When presidents have attended in the past, they usually stick to a playbook of making some jokes about themselves and saying some nice things about the press. Now, joking about himself and saying nice things about the press are not exactly the president's strong suits, so we'll have to wait and see what he says. You can bet, however, that the prediction market is all over this. And whatever the president says, someone is going to win a whole lot of money. And speaking of the prediction markets, the prediction market platform Kalshi this week banned a former Texas congressional candidate, Zeke Enriquez, for having wagered on his own congressional campaign. Enriquez was a candidate in the Republican primary earlier this year in the 21st Congressional District. He finished 11th out of 12 candidates, getting 1.2% of the vote. The Kalshi announcement did not say which way Enriquez had bet on the election, but I've got to say, if he bet on himself to win, he's one of the world's greatest eternal optimists. If he bet on himself to lose, maybe he's just a pragmatic realist who saw a way to take a lemon and make some lemonade. Either way, maybe might be somebody with a future in public office. Perhaps he'll try again. This week, the Trump administration announced that it is reclassifying marijuana to be a less dangerous drug. Observers expect the next step will be for the administration to make marijuana legal for all people with a health need and all people flying Spirit Airlines. The big entertainment news this week is the release of the movie The Devil Wears Prada 2, which of course is a sequel to the original movie, The Devil Wears Prada. Sequels are a time-honored tradition in Hollywood. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, but the studios are always interested in giving them a try. Rumor has it that one of the studios was considering making a sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey that would be called 2026: A Space Odyssey, and the computer HAL 9000 would be upgraded to ChatGPT and renamed Claude. The idea was scotched, though, when people realized the movie would no longer qualify in the science fiction category for the Academy Awards. The baseball season is about a month in so far, but we're already beginning to see some trends. As is often the case, the New York Yankees are very good, and the New York Mets are very bad. New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani has a plan to fix that problem. The mayor announced this week that he would impose a special tax on visiting teams playing in New York this season. Each visiting team must pay 10% of their runs to the Mets. And speaking of Major League Baseball, this week marked the 150th anniversary of the first Major League Baseball game. It was on April 22nd, 1876, that the Boston Red Stockings, as they were then called, defeated the Philadelphia Athletics 6-5. The Philadelphia Athletics, of course, then morphed into the Kansas City Athletics and morphed into the Oakland Athletics, and now have morphed into just the Athletics while they play most of their home games in Sacramento, awaiting their new stadium in Las Vegas. All right, so you got that? Whatever the Athletics may be called, though, they're coming to town tonight to begin a 3-game series against the Texas Rangers. The Rangers, so far at least, have only had one name and one hometown. And this is tax-free weekend. This is tax-free weekend. It's not the weekend where you can stock up on shirts and socks and underwear. That comes in August. This is the weekend where you can stock up on stuff that the state thinks you might need when the power goes out. So you can run out this week and buy several packages of batteries, put them in the same drawer where you put the batteries last year that you can't find when you actually need them. There are a few useful things that are exempt from sales tax this weekend, like ice chests and non-electric can openers. But the one thing that most people want to run out and buy in a panic when there's a big storm coming, toilet paper, is not on the tax-free list. So go figure that one. As for the weekend weather, it's about what you would expect this time of year. Warm and humid. There is a chance of storms. We hope they will not be the kind of storms that make the power go out. But if they do, you can take that ice chest and fill it up with beer and listen to the ball game on a battery-powered radio. So have a good weekend.
Thank you very much, Tom. We have a few announcements today. Our club, through the International Committee, provides bicycles to students at the International Newcomer Academy each year. Key Bryant and Shanna Saldana, committee chairs, will be presenting 24 bikes at the end of the year. As you leave today, please stop and sign the cards to the students who will be receiving their bikes. These bikes are really important because for some of the students, this is the only transportation that their families have. The cards will remind them that it's the Rotary Club providing the bikes, so please take a minute to sign them. And thank you, Key and Shanna, for your leadership of the International Committee. Our own Joe Michaels, Managing Director at Solomon Bruce Consulting, has been traveling, and he has attended some Rotary meetings. Joe, come up and present the flag.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I have 25 years of perfect attendance, and when I started in Rotary 25 years ago, that was a big deal. And by the grace of God, I've been able to maintain that. Sometimes it's hard. But Madam President, this week I have a flag from the club in Joplin, Missouri. I was in Joplin and Topeka the last couple weeks and got to go to Rotary twice. So there's our flag.
Okay,
Thank you.
you very much.
Thank you, you bet.
Appreciate it. If you aren't aware, please note that if you are traveling and would like one of our club flags, like this, to exchange at a Rotary Club meeting, just contact Aurora. As you can see on the Rotary website, the meeting dates and locations for every Rotary Club in the world. All you have to do is put in the location where you'll be visiting, and they will tell you when and where to go to Rotary. Okay, we have several first readings for prospective members. Presenting these today on behalf of the board is Christina Judge, Executive Director, Mental Health Connection. Christina.
Thank you, Ann. It's a great day today. We have 4 first readings. The proposed members are Christine Reed Young. She's the owner of Powerful Roots Physical Therapy. Classification is healthcare, and proposer is Randall Fluke. Second, we have Chris Butler. He is the president and CEO of the Parenting Center, classification nonprofit. Proposer is Charles Johnson. Next, we have Taylor T.W. Brown, Director of Education and Training, Federal Public Defender's Office, District of Texas. Classification is law. Proposer is Scott Hackler. And last, we have Cynthia Ann Powell, Assistant Professor, Engagement and Outreach Ambassador at UNT Health. Her proposer is Brad Nowlin. If no written objectives are received in the Rotary office by May 1st, these proposals will be given as second readings and voted on by the club. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. It's now my pleasure to present a blue badge to a new member who has completed 6 acts of service. Serena Oliver, I haven't seen you today. Are you here? Well, we'll do that next week. Give her time to do 1 more act of service. All right, next I'd like to call on Ed Macklin to introduce our newest member. Ed.
And I'm so glad you asked that. You come up here. I'm proud to have the distinct pleasure of introducing Dr. Brandon Jacotsky as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. I first brought Brandon here as a guest about 3 years ago or so. He joined his cousin Kevin, who I introduced as a new member nearly 2 years ago, and his former student, Ryan Perucci, who I introduced as the youngest member of our club about 6 months or so ago. The Jacotsky family has a long tradition of community service in Fort Worth, and I'm excited that he has chosen our club as part of that tradition of service. And I'm also excited to have a new member that not only has less hair than me, but is also shorter than I am. Bring the tape measure. Anyway, Brandon has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 college degrees. He has an undergrad from UT Austin, Hook'em Horns, a master's in management from NYU in New York, master's in legal studies from down the street at the Texas A&M School of Law, and lastly, a PhD in information sciences from the University of Alabama, our cross SEC rivals, I guess. Anyway, Brandon was the youngest business faculty member at Johns Hopkins University before he joined his previous professors at NYU to become one of their colleagues. And after professorship at NYU, he was Daniel Pullen's first faculty appointment at the Neely School of Business here at TCU in 2019. Brandon is not all academia. He was also the founding drummer for one of Fort Worth's most toured bands, Green River Ordnance. I'm sure y'all have heard them. Anyway, it was great pride that I introduced you to Brandon Jacotsky. Brandon, the podium is all yours.
Well, thank you, Ed. It is true. I used to whip my hair around as a drummer with Green River Ordnance. My bald brother from another mother here has plenty to claim on credential, but academia alone, I've learned more from Ed and the front porch in Fort Worth growing up here than anything I have from the academy. It's an honor to be here. The first time I entered Rotary, coming back now 7 years, I saw strong leaders like Tom Law, Chris Harris, Alan Blaylock, and Captain Kirk bow their head in invocation and then stand for the anthem. And I realized I want to be part of this. The Chikotsky family for 100 years is named in one way for the city, to give to the city, but also a namesake for a village that was wiped out. We ran from forced conscription and persecution, and it was the meatpacking district in Fort Worth that gave my great-granddaddy, Morris J. Chikotsky, a job, coming in through Galveston, through the meatpacking cities of Chicago, Kansas City, and all the Upton Sinclair-esque harrowing stories you heard about in that old labor experience. Selling meatpacking products in Henderson Lane at the old market that the Wilkes brothers just refurbished, I can feel the history in this town, and I can feel how this city saved the Chikotskys. My great-granddaddy sent money and picture frames to my granddaddy, Dave, for whom my brother's named, and that money got him over through Galveston. My granddaddy, Dave, was best friends with Craig Goldman's granddaddy, and they were in each other's weddings. Even though we have 1 million people, this is a town. This is a relational town. Things make sense to me here. In many ways, it's the grandstand of the country. We support our police. We love our first responders. We believe in enforcement, and accountability is compassion. God is still worthy of this room in our grander and broader city. And we focus on first principles of finance to operationalize our government and just get along.
Oh my God.
You represent the best of that. I'm honored to be part of it. Thank you for being so nice to Cousin Kevin and young Ryan Perucci and all my Horned Frog students. God bless Rotary and God bless Cowtown. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're good. Oh, wait, we're not good. We're not good, come back.
Are you getting in there? Okay.
All right. Welcome to Rotary, Brandon. How fitting it is that your introduction was today when we have Congressman Goldman here. We're very glad to have you as a member. As a reminder, membership growth is very important to our club. I would encourage everyone here to think about friends and colleagues who would enjoy Rotary membership and our commitment to service above self. And now it's time for the main event. Here to introduce our speaker is Mitch Reitman, Principal, the Reitman Consulting Group. Mitch?
Thank you, Brandon. I went to high school with your aunt, so it is a small town. Congressman Craig Goldman is serving his first term in the U.S. House of Representatives representing Texas' 12th Congressional District, which includes parts of Tarrant and Parker counties. In Congress, he serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. A fifth-generation Texan and fourth-generation Fort Worth native, Craig is proud of his Texas roots and devoted to public service. As a proven conservative, he is dedicated to championing common sense policy solutions both at home in Texas and in Washington, D.C. His focus on implementing policies to secure the border, reduce taxes, and strengthen national defense reflects his stalwart commitment to policies to promote freedom and prosperity for Texans. Previously, Craig served 12 years in the Texas House of Representatives, representing part of Tarrant County. He held several leadership positions, including Chairman of the House Committee on Energy Resources and Chairman of the House Republican Caucus. Before entering public office, Craig spent nearly a decade working alongside his father at their family-run gourmet food and wine store in Fort Worth. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Texas at Austin, where he was a member of the prestigious Zeta Beta Tau fraternity. Introducing Craig Goldman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch, very much. President Sheets and Rotarians, it's an honor to be here. First of all, it's great to be home. It certainly is an honor to be here. Mitch talked about the 12 years I was in the State House. My district was in southwest Tarrant County. I did not cover downtown Fort Worth, so I'm thrilled as a congressman to represent not only downtown Fort Worth, but in the recent redistricting, I just picked up the stockyards. So if Taylor is filming down there and he's stopping up traffic, holler at me and I'll tell him to move so you can get your cars through wherever he's filming. I actually first started having complaints around town that Taylor is everywhere filming. And I said, yes, that is a very good thing. So just go around. It's okay. We love that in Fort Worth. But it is an honor to be here. Rebecca, thank you so much for sponsoring my staffers, Leah and Jennifer, who are here. I also put some extra staffers down on the street earlier, one guy with a drum. So, feel free when you leave here to go say hi to them. I'm paying them a lot of money for the extra music and entertainment for you today. There's a wide variety of things I could talk about here today. What I thought I'd do is give you a brief insight of my first year and 4 months of being a U.S. Congressman, and then certainly open it up for questions. And I'll be happy to entertain any question you want. I don't have to answer it, but you can ask whatever you want. And bring some of those guys from the streets up. I'll be happy to answer their questions. So that'd be a lot of fun. But no, first and foremost, I was perfectly happy in the Texas State House, and it was a huge honor to serve there for 12 years. As Mitch mentioned, I was chair of the Energy and Resources Committee, which sounds great until Kelly Mitchell here had a lot to do with this because she worked for then Speaker Dade Phelan at the time when I was appointed chair of the House Energy Resources Committee, a great honor. 2 weeks later, we had Winter Storm Uri. Thank you, Kelly. So, yeah, that was a heck of a time to be chair of the Energy Resources Committee. But I learned a lot in that short amount of time. And 2 weeks after Winter Storm Uri, we had a 24-hour hearing to discuss what went wrong and the little that went right those few days, where we literally were seconds away from losing the entire grid. It wasn't minutes, it wasn't hours, it wasn't days. We were seconds away from losing the entire grid, which, yes, that is scary. I'm very proud to say that since that time, we've done nothing but improve our grid. We actually fired every single person that basically had anything to do with our grid because, believe it or not, at the end of 24-hour hearing, we concluded, yes, it was a 100-year storm. It truly was a perfect storm. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong, but there also was human error involved. And so the good news is those people are no longer here, and there's great people now at ERCOT running our grid, and it's only gotten better over the last few years. It certainly was a humble phone call to get from Maddie Parker when, and Brandon mentioned it, by the way, we may be the 10th largest city in the nation, but we're still a small town. So we kind of got word that Kay wasn't going to run again, and which was shocking to me. And like I said, I was perfectly happy in the State House. And Maddie called and she said, hi, have you heard the news about Kay? I said, I have. I said, who are we going to get to run? And she said, you are. And I said, no, Maddie, I'm happy in the State House. I'm good. And she goes, nope, you're running. I called David Parker that night, and I said, well, I know it's like to be married to Maddie. You really don't have a say in anything, do you? He goes, nope, enjoy it. But it really was humbling to get that call. And then speaking with Congresswoman Granger time and time again, I mean, she really is a legend, and she is a living legend. She was the first Republican elected to Congress from Texas, female, and the first woman elected to be chair of the Appropriations Committee in Washington, D.C., the House Appropriations Committee. And when I tell people that I represent the seat that she did, people their eyes go wide open and like, you have huge shoes or heels to fill. She really was and is a legend up in Washington, D.C., and I just want to thank her for her many, many, many years of service. Harriet, thank you for that beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. I've heard it a lot in the last year and 4 months, and that was next to the Marine Corps Band. That was one of the best renditions of it. Harriet, I see Janet Hahn here. Janet and I were in the same Leadership Fort Worth class that Harriet had to oversee us. We weren't the best students in the world, but well, I mean, some of the lectures got a little long, and Harriet had to put up with us, but it's great to see you again, Harriet. It was, if you haven't gone through Leadership Fort Worth, go through Leadership Fort Worth. It's one of the best experiences of my life. And Mitch did talk about my family heritage here. My great-great-great-grandfather did move here. He actually was a Russian immigrant in Canada and was led the team of oxen to run the trolleys around Montreal. And somehow he got word. What we don't know is how he got word, but there was an article about him in the 1910 Fort Worth newspaper at the time, prior to the Star Telegram. And so we do know that he came here to help lead the team of oxen to carry all the supplies to build the original TMP Railroad from here in downtown Fort Worth out to El Paso. On his way back from El Paso, he was coming through Colorado City, and there was an auction on the courthouse steps for some sheep. And so he, quote, as a joke, bid on the sheep, and he won the bid. That led to him being the largest sheep herder in Texas history. As he said, he was running sheep from Fort Worth all the way to New Mexico. He open grazed, there were no fences until, as he said, again quoting him, the nesters from up north, which meant Kansas, came here to start and brought their cattle and put up barbed wire, and he said that ended his time of being a sheep herder. He returned to Fort Worth, and ironically, he opened a general store, which go 4 generations later, as Mitch said, my dad and I had a retail store here selling food and wine. So Fort Worth truly, truly is a small town, and Brandon talked about our family history. I mean, we were working together. Tom mentioned the Texas Rangers. My grandfather was a season ticket holder to the Fort Worth Cats. When Judge Vandergrift told him, I'm bringing the big boys here, the Major League Baseball, enough of minor league baseball, I want you to be a season ticket holder to the Texas Rangers. So we were day one, season 1, season ticket holders to the Texas Rangers, and we're season ticket holders for over 50 years. So a lot of history here in Fort Worth, and then, like I said, it's just really an honor to be standing up here in front of you. Okay, first year in Congress. It's surreal. It really is surreal. I, of course, went there as a kid. I remember getting dressed up in a suit and going to then Speaker Jim Wright's office and shaking his hand. Fast forward, that is the very office I hold today, Texas 12. There's a great portrait of Speaker Wright up in the speaker's lobby, appropriately. And so I walk past that almost every single day and kind of give a nod to Speaker Wright. He did so much for Fort Worth. He really helped put us on the map. There's no question about it. But we got sworn in January 3rd. Of course, the president got sworn in January 20th in the Rotunda. And that was an incredible experience because instead of the masses of thousands of people from all over the United States, and by the way, if you were coming up, the worst thing that happens to a freshman in a presidential inauguration year is, oh, you're in charge of tickets. Well, you don't even have your staff all together put in place come January 3rd, and your phone's ringing off the hook for tickets to the inauguration. So for those of you that were coming up for the inauguration, I had you tickets literally sitting next to the President of the United States. You were going to be sitting very well until they canceled it. And so, but no, it really was an honor to be in the Rotunda. They really was only members of the U.S. House, members of the U.S. Senate, the President's family, the oligarchs, as we call them, who are back there, all the tech millionaires and billionaires, and the Marine Corps band and the choir, and that was really it. So it was really, really special being in the Rotunda, as much as disappointing it was, I'm sure, for millions of people who came up to D.C. and wanted to see it live themselves. And then we got to work. Speaker Johnson, for those of you who don't know Mike Johnson, what you see on TV is truly who he is. He's too nice for the job, as I told him a number of times. He really is an incredible human being. He is an amazing man. Talk about herding cats. There's 220 of us, and we have basically a 2-vote margin on any vote. And Washington, D.C., I will say this, is nothing like Austin, in that Austin can be partisan, but not all the time. Washington, D.C. is nothing but partisan, and that's a shame. And if there's one thing, one major change I want to make is try and get rid of that partisanship. It just makes it too difficult to govern. And to that point, only 84 bills have passed both the House and the Senate in the last year and a half and made it to President Trump's desk. Keep in mind, we pass 1,500 bills that make it to the governor's desk in 6 months every other year. So there really is a lack of, well, I'll just say bipartisanship to move bills across the final line, and that's a shame. So what happens? So members of our own party hold Speaker Johnson, to incredible, what's the right word? I'll be kind. Well, they're just not they're not understanding of basically what Speaker Johnson or the leadership needs to do to pass these pieces of legislation. They're holdouts, if you will, to try and get better things. And that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work because every single one of us could do that. And it's just an extremely difficult job, but he does it so well. And so what he did miraculously leading up to the elections last year, or in 2024, is he called every single committee chair into the room and said, we're going to pass a major piece of legislation. We're going to maintain majority of the House. I can feel it. President Trump's going to win the White House back. I can feel it. Their team is working on it. We're working on it. We're going to pass the most incredible piece of legislation in our lifetime. And long story short, we did. The One Big Beautiful Bill, or the Working Families Tax Cut Act that we passed last June, that the president signed July 4th, for the first time in American history had input from 11 committees. The speaker basically challenged every single chairman to bring him the best that they possibly could out of the committees. And they did. My committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, that oversees healthcare, major component of the legislation. The attempt was to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. So we started on that path. But as many of you have read about or seen on TV, there were major tax cuts in the piece of legislation as well, mainly for working families. So it really was an amazing accomplishment. Yeah, we patted ourselves on the back, but I mean, don't take my word for it. Take Hal Rogers, who's been there for over 40 years. He said it's the most consequential piece of legislation he's ever voted for. So that was great, but it took all the first 5 months of last year. Then the Appropriations Committee got to work on passing the budget. That is an extraordinary process as well, because think about everybody comes to Washington, D.C. and asks for money. It's everybody who comes up and asks for money. And the problem is we're in a tremendous deficit. We're in a $39 trillion deficit. Keep in mind, I've voted for a balanced budget in Austin every single session. Last session, Kelly, y'all had a $30 billion surplus that you worked with. And we have $30 billion in our rainy day fund in Texas. So working in Washington, D.C. and working in Austin, Texas, completely different when it comes to budgeting. But we have a major, obviously, problem in the United States of America. It's so easy to approve money and spend money. So not only we have to do a better job of that, but we truly have to start saying no. So what happened was all last year after the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Appropriations Committee worked on passing basically a Republican budget. All last year prior to that, we've been living under the Biden budget. And so all those policies they implemented and passed in the Appropriations Committee, we were still living under. So we finally got a majority of that passed right before we left for Christmas break, except for one little component, the Homeland Security portion of the budget, which we're still fighting over. The Senate passed their version of it last week. We go back next week, and hopefully we finally get that done. And because the fear is, as the new Homeland Security Director, Mark Wayne Mullen, has said, they've got money for one more paycheck. And they're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul, but Peter doesn't have any more money. And he has one more paycheck to pay TSA. And if we don't get that done next week, then look for, unfortunately, more long lines at TSA. So anyway, it's just been an extraordinary experience. There have been so many of you that have come up. I love having people come up from the district, from Texas. My days are relatively the same as they were in Austin. We fly in on Mondays, but instead of driving 3 hours on I-35 and getting off in Waco and going around Temple, I get flown by the Great American Airlines every Monday morning, and then normally we fly home Thursdays, sometimes Fridays. But the days in between are just packed with meetings, constituents who come up, people who come up from Texas, or committee hearings. I was honored to be selected to be put on the Energy and Commerce Committee. There are 3 freshmen on there. The first Republican freshman that have been put on Energy and Commerce in over 25 years. So that was a huge honor as well. And certainly my background, being the chair of the Energy Committee in Austin, helped with that. But with that, there's a brief, I would say, background of what we do and how we do it, but at this point, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions anybody has. Rebecca, and then Mark, and go ahead.
Thank you so much for being here today. You're always available. You're always accessible. Steve says hello. Now for my question. Would you share with everyone in this room, I believe they really like to hear this, about Molly James' law?
Yeah.
That you passed, you spearheaded this legislation, and it crossed the finish line. It's amazing, and I'll never forget that experience.
Yeah, Rebecca asked about Molly Jane's Law. By far the most important piece of legislation I will ever pass in my career, no matter what I do from this point on. Molly Jane Matheson, for those of you recall, was sexually abused and murdered right down the road from TCU. Her parents I grew up with, David and Tracy, and Tracy calls me, and we were not in session yet. It was just before, it was the summer before session. Tracy called me soon after the funeral and said, we got to make sure this doesn't happen to any girl in Texas ever again. And my response was, Tracy, murder is illegal in the state of Texas. I mean, what more can we do? She goes, no, there were circumstances beyond that. So credit to my staff. They did all the work. I just passed the bill. Tracy did all the work. I just passed the bill. So many people did all the work. Like I said, I just got up to the front mic and said, move past it, explained what the bill did and said, move past it. So credit truly goes to so many other people. But basically what the legislation did was it says, well, what happened was with Molly's murderer was he had committed the act 5 times before that we know of. He just didn't murder. He had sexually abused 4 other females in different cities across the state of Texas. So when he was arrested for doing what he did to Molly, the officers didn't know that he had a criminal past because he wasn't a criminal. He had sexually abused, but he wasn't ever prosecuted. In some of the cases, it was he said, she said. Some of the cases, the females were did not want to come forward with their stories. They were almost embarrassed, which is sad to say. So after he murdered Molly, 3 days later, he murdered a girl in Plano as well. So once they had him and they started understanding that he had been arrested before, what the legislation says is that if you are arrested for sexual assault in the state of Texas, arrested, not prosecuted, arrested, then your name goes into VICAP. The investigators had to put your name in VICAP. It's an FBI-run database up from Washington, D.C. It's nationwide. And so your name is there that you've committed this act before, because we know these people, they're animals. So they commit the act once, they're going to commit the act a second time. And so hold that person and investigate as best you can this person so they're hopefully not allowed back on the street. And 1 month after we passed that legislation, again, credit goes to Tracy most of all, because my chief of staff at the time realized the bill went through Homeland Security, and my good friend Pancho Navarez was chairman of that. He's from down in the valley, and they met every Wednesday. And we're kind of getting close to the time period because we kept working on the bill. It wasn't that easy to put all this together. And so we got late, and I think it was April, which is really late in session. So we asked Pancho to have a hearing on it. He said, not only will I have a hearing, I'm going to pass it the day that we hear it, which is very rare. You usually have to wait a week for the bills to be passed. Well, what we figured out is the bill could be heard. Tracy could testify on it 2 years to the date that Molly was murdered, and she did it. And she was rock solid. So we passed that legislation. Again, all I did was say move passage, but all the credit goes to all the people who put in the hard work for it. Oh, and 1 month after we passed it, thank you. 1 month after we passed it, Tarrant County was the first county to actually find someone and prosecute them. Yes, it's got a trio over there. Go ahead, Mark.
Congressman, I appreciate you being here today. You brought up the topic of deficit spending at the federal level, and that is a nonpartisan issue if I ever have seen one. We've had Republicans in the White House, we've had Democrats in the White House, we've had Republican-controlled Congresses, we've had Democratic-controlled Congresses, and yet for over 25 years, we continue to create deficits. And the federal debt right now exceeds the GDP, even the most aggressive estimates of GDP. That's not sustainable. What is it going to take for us to get a handle on that and resolve that issue?
Well, first and foremost, change of administration, I'll be partisan here for a second, mattered. Because the Biden administration, and go ask any cabinet secretary, we of course have many cabinet secretaries come up in our committees, and basically what they say is just astonishing amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in their departments. If you see Secretary Rollins around town, ask her what she found in the Department of Agriculture. So there certainly was that. Now, are we doing a great job in Congress of holding the line? In my opinion, not really. We need to start saying no. In fact, it just shocks me sometimes when members brag about the amount of money they've brought home to their districts. And maybe that's good when we have $30 billion surplus, but certainly not when we have a $39 trillion deficit. DOGE mattered. DOGE did wake up some people to what type of spending. It started with USAID. The amount of waste, fraud, and abuse is spending there. Dr. Oz came to speak to us last week. He's just on the tip of finding incredible amount of fraud in California. People who say that they were forming agencies to help people. They just took a picture of some place that just had mail in there that was getting millions of dollars a year. So there's waste, fraud, and abuse all over government. And so we're doing our very best, and certainly the cabinet secretaries are doing their very best to root that out. But it's up to us to hold the line on spending. And I will tell you, it's just not there yet. The mentality to stop the spending that we do is not there yet. And so I don't know if that takes time or new leadership to do it. But I certainly will, as I get older in this and more seniority, I'll be fighting for it. Yes, sir.
Congressman, Congress has come under a lot of scrutiny and criticism in recent years for essentially not doing its job. The oversight process, I think a lot of people would say, has been generally broken for the past 20 some odd years. Regular order has not been regularly observed in any time of recent memory. Committees seem to be mostly an opportunity for grandstanding, where people spend their time. It just cuts to every congressman so he can make his little soundbite to put on social media. What do you see? I know as a freshman congressman, you probably have little influence over many of those decisions. But what do you see as some opportunities for institutional reform so that the legislature actually takes primacy over the executive?
Well, let me disagree with you a little bit on your premise. One, I haven't seen that. I've seen just the opposite. So keep in mind, we all know 5 to 10 members of Congress because of our cell phones and by watching TV, and people who want to be, I call them celebrity politicians. They want to be famous. They want to be famous for different reasons. Jasmine Crockett, I served with her in the State House. Now I've served with her in Congress. She never was a serious member of Congress. She never was a serious member of the State House. She was filming her TikToks. She did the same thing up in DC. Now she's leaving, thankfully. She's going to probably go get paid $5 million to be on The View or something like that. That's what she wants. She wanted to cash out. She never wanted to be a serious member. So like I said, we all know 5 to 10 names of members of Congress, but those aren't serious members of Congress. The good news is there are over 200 plus, 300 plus members of Congress who are there for the right reason. I may disagree with people on policy, but I don't disagree why they're there. They're there to represent their districts, their states, their country, and doing the right thing. I said this at an oil and gas lecture a few weeks ago. I said, raise your hand if you know who Brett Guthrie is. And does anyone here know who Brett Guthrie is? Not one hand has gone up. Brett Guthrie is chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, chairman of my committee. 80% of the legislation that goes to the House floor comes through the Energy and Commerce Committee. No one knows the name Brett Guthrie because Brett Guthrie shows up every single day and gets to work. And so do a majority of us on that committee. And so we're not shooting for the limelight. And there's so many members of Congress that aren't there for the limelight. Think about that. Tom Cole is chairman of the Appropriations from Oklahoma, an incredible man. Hal Rogers has been there like 40 years. He's not on TikTok. He's not on Instagram. They're there for the right reason. So I mean, truly what I've noticed so far is as we are able to pass the legislation in the U.S. House, and we are doing it, where it's getting bottlenecked truly is over in the Senate, because, if you will, of their archaic rules of having to get to 60 for most of the legislation that we pass out of the House. And when senators have truly, we've seen this with Democrat House members and senators, there truly is a Trump derangement syndrome. We cannot give Donald Trump a win, even though it's not a win for him. It's doing things for the country. They will not move and they will not pass legislation. And all that does is hurt the country. Why they think it's helping themselves. Pastor.
Congressman, thank you for being here. You're always accessible. We appreciate that. Thank you for your service in the State House. Thank you for the way you moved very effectively backstage, unifying a bipartisan consensus and working with the Senate, which was not easy to do. And thank you for being on the speaker's team that got us structural funding in 2018. It wouldn't have happened without you and a half a dozen others. How do we apply those principles? I'm asking you for a spiritual analysis.
Oh, boy.
How do we apply?
The pastor asking the Jewish guy for spiritual analysis. All right. I got my rabbi here, though, Rabbi Mecklenburger, so we're good. I'm covered.
So we deal, we've got really daunting challenges. Educating our children is one, funding it is one. You can't do that on the cheap. Every parent knows that. How do we build bridges to people who have convictions opposite of us?
Well, that's the tough part, right? And it's truly, I think it's electing the right people at the right time. I mentioned Speaker Johnson. Talk about an incredible spiritual and religious man. And it's great to be around him. It really is. And it's so hard for people who oppose maybe a decision Mike Johnson has made. Because he's an incredible man. He's so kind to everybody. He wouldn't hurt a flea. And so I could see in years past where you disagreed with the speaker and you went after the speaker. That doesn't happen in our conference because everyone respects Mike Johnson. So, give me 435 Mike Johnsons and we had this all solved. But I will say, I'm not just bragging on my class because it's my class, but we had roughly 38 new members from the Republican Party last year. And it's an incredible, incredible class. You probably don't know any other name because they're not on TikTok. They're not on Instagram. They're not trying to be famous. They're there for the right reasons. So we can follow that up with another class. I think we're on to something special. There was, I'll say it, a few years ago, the class that Marjorie Taylor Greene was a part of was a bad class. And so she left, thankfully. She wasn't a productive member of Congress. And her replacement, Clay Fuller, is a great guy. Military veteran, and is there for the right reasons to represent his district and his state and his country. The more of those, and part of that is on us to recruit the right people to run and then make sure that they're fully funded and they run a good campaign to get elected. So the good news is it truly has started with my class and not my words. Mike Johnson's. It's the best class he's seen since he's been there. And so we hope to now, this next election, be able to do the same thing. And as our class rises, into leadership, we're able to provide hopefully real and good change. One final question, Veronica.
Okay, just real quick, thanks for being here. So can you just tell people about your involvement and support of the new air traffic control program for Sharon County?
Yeah, the air traffic control program, absolutely unbelievable. And of course, copycat TCU just followed right on the lawn on their aerospace division. But no, it's so many things. Look, I'm going to brag total on Tarrant County College. I just told Veronica right before we sat down. For those of you who haven't been involved with Tarrant County College or don't know anything about it, get with Veronica and ask her about it and go out to one of the campuses, one of the 5 campuses. Those of you who don't know, I was on the original founding board of the Tarrant County College Foundation, where we raised money and gave away money for scholarships. So we put out kind of the word to all 5 campuses that we were going to give away these scholarships to needy students. and we got back, this high, a stack this high of people looking for scholarships. There's so much need and so many people who need a second chance or a third chance. Tarrant County College gives that, not only a tremendous education, but a second chance. Or the single mom, one of the people looking for was a single mom. She was taking the bus from one job, taking the bus to another job. She had 2 kids at home, a single mom, and she was just trying to survive. And she was going to Tarrant County College to try and improve her education so she get a better job so she could buy a car. Absolutely unbelievable stories like that every single day on our campuses at Tarrant County College. And I just want to thank y'all and everything that they do, because they are an incredible part of this county that truly so few actually know the good that they do. So please take that back to everybody. All right, we're getting the hook. Thank y'all very much. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much, Congressman Goldman, for sharing your update with us. It's a tradition of this club to make a contribution in your honor, to Rotary International's Polio Plus Fund.
Great.
Rotary has provided over 3 billion immunizations to children across the world. So thank you, and please come back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming. As we close our meeting today, we have 3 announcements. First, the Board of Directors will meet in Suite 305 immediately following this meeting. Second, this club was well represented at the Rotary District 5790 Assembly last Saturday, and we were recognized for having the largest number of new members so far this year. I know, it's great. It was my pleasure to accept on behalf of the club a new ball cap with Rotary's message this year, create lasting impact. And I know you'll be hearing about that message during the next Rotary year. Finally, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Next week on May 1st, we have a mental health panel discussion introduced by former mayor and past Rotary President Kenneth Barr and moderated by Mental Health Connection Executive Director, our own Christina Judge. I think you'll want to hear the program. Thanks again for coming today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Our meeting is adjourned.